change this. Pastor, can you try again?
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Okay, can you hear him, Henry?
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Testing
Perfect.
1 2 3.
All right, wonderful.
All right, we have a little bit over a minute.
Okay, add another minute, please.
All right, 1 second.
Thank you.
All righty.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Let's have a great show.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, now we have a minute.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's great, Henry.
Don't mention it.
Mm-hmm. Great. All right. All right. Whew. Okay. And when he's on, Henry, please put him on mute, okay?
Put you on mute.
Yeah, put me on mute. Thank you.
Alrighty, we'll do.
Yeah, let me get that straight. Hey, Andre. Hey, Robert. Hey, Lorraine. Oh my gosh, not you, me. I'm trying to download something. Okay. And
All right,
Flora,
stand by.
Louis Chewy. Lorraine, I hope your mom's doing all right.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am green.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's a joy to be with you today. Got a lot to talk about today. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. There's been a lot that's been in the news, and though we won't be able to touch upon all of these issues today, I want to know what your thoughts are about Mitt Romney leaving the Senate. That is to say, he's not going to run for re-election. He said it's time for a new generation to step forward. What do you think about that? What's going on? What do you think about this impeachment inquiry? Do you think it's going to lead to impeachment? What do you think is going to happen? I want to hear your thoughts about this. I talk to a lot of different news outlets throughout the day, and I like to share your thoughts with them. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. That's Louis Chewy and Flora and Andre and Lorraine and Robert. That's right. And Barbara. And sending you all so much love this morning. And Betty Chestnut out there in Portland, Oregon. How you doing, sweetie? And Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia. Don't forget that. And Daryl, how you doing, everybody? So please meet my morning stars. And morning stars, everybody, like and share the show. Please, thumbs up, like and share the show. Love the show. Love it and share. Love it and share. Let's talk about the economy today with Dr. Max Wolf. Real wages haven't moved and we're feeling inflation. And every time you listen to the corporate media, they say things are getting better, but Americans are not saying that. In fact, we're broker than ever before. So we got to talk about that. But then we also have to talk about a financial advisor. Many of us think that you only get a financial advisor if you have high net worth. Well, um, a group that I'm working with, Megan Financial, they look for working class and middle class people. Yeah, you can have a financial advisor, someone upon whom you can call to say, hey, this is what I have in my paycheck. How do I get ready for retirement? Should I invest over here? That's what they do. They'll be on at 7 o'clock. But first, we're going to talk about this awful case in Seattle. A young Indian student was crossing the street, 25-mile-per-hour zone. The police car was going 63 miles per hour. They hit and killed and ran away from this young lady. And police officers were heard or overheard laughing about it. They said, you know, pay her family $11,000 to be done with it. Now the Indian consulate has gotten involved. It's just a mess and a complete disregard, reckless disregard, baseless disregard for human life. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Let's get to some of these headlines. The United Auto Workers could go on strike after their contract expires at midnight. That's 150,000 auto workers. They're seeking a 36% pay increase over 4 years. Shorter working hours, and the restoration of benefits lost in negotiations with the 2008 Great Recession. They made concessions to save their companies. The companies never repaid them as they promised them that they would do. And as you hear them talk about getting 40 hours paid for 32 hours work, the fact is real wages haven't moved in 50 years. So what they're doing, they're trying to keep their heads above water. Go watch what the corporate media are saying about this. A federal court has once again declared DACA illegal. Last night's ruling by a Texas judge stopped the federal program that protects that protects from deportation undocumented immigrants brought to the U.S. by children. The Biden administration has sought to codify this program, implemented in 2012 into federal law last year, but this decision leaves hundreds of thousands of people in legal limbo. Thousands remain missing in Libya, everybody, after destructive flooding. The death toll could be as high as, get this, 20,000 people, according to Libyan officials. And so they said bodies are strewn everywhere. God bless them. And the escaped killer in Pennsylvania was captured after a 13-day manhunt. Thank goodness for that. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 68 degrees. It will be partly cloudy. It'll be partly sunny up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, 81 degrees. In Major League Baseball, the Royals 7, the White Sox 1, the Rockies 7, the Cubs 3, and the the Rays 5 and the Twins 4. In Chicago and Minneapolis, we didn't have a great night yesterday. WNBA, kind of tough for us in the WNBA as well. The Aces 87, the Sky 59, the Sun 90, and the Lynx 60. And tonight, the Vikings will be playing the Eagles. And those are the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Pastor Darius Brooks. We are talking about people and the economy today and what they are and are not getting. How can we get the food that you are giving away by the hundreds of bags full every week? On Tuesdays, yes?
Yes, Tuesdays from 5 till 7. Every Tuesday from 5 to 7, Great Central Church, 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois. And on Wednesdays for senior Santita, that they can come out on Wednesdays from noon till 2 to receive baskets of food, $200 and $300 worth of food, y'all, like peanut butter and jelly. So every Tuesday from 5 till 7, Great Central Church, 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois. That's off of 290 in Manheim, or you go to gracecentral.net, gracecentral.net. Santita, I'm excited about you sharing what's going on in the world. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world, and I always share with people that God is a promise keeper. But how? Santita, how can God be a promise keeper in this season with Santita Jackson over there, Darius Brooks over here, Dr. Shanita Knighton over there. How can God, being omnipresent everywhere at the same time, do his work when all three of our stories are different, but we sharing the same pain? Santita John 7:17. I love teaching at Great Central, not just information that makes us understand it's two ways we can do things. It's a fork in the road. You can go that way or you can go that way. Both of those places are going to end you up someplace. John 7:17. If anyone's will is to do God's will, he will know whether the teaching is from God or whether the teaching is from one speaking on their own behalf. Santita, I thought you sort of thought this going to share with somebody. Okay, what's your crazy, amazing situation look like? And I say crazy, amazing because all of it, when you put it in God's hands, he has a plan for it to turn out a certain way. Do I do God's will or do I do my will? I don't know where I heard this from, Santita, but I remember something in faith is like a toothbrush. Use it daily. But whatever you do, don't you use someone else's that's tasting something that don't taste like what you used to. We have to work on being independent in and through God's word, Santita, and not being dependent on others when it comes to what they say God says. And how they are doing things, what they say, what they believe, God bless them. Because revelation is only revelation when it's your revelation, Santita, or when it's my revelation of what God is telling Santita to do over there with the radio station, or Darius to do over here with Dasha and Deborah, or Dr. Knighton, and how God is telling her with her son and her family, and how she's helping people. We got to get to a place where we got to hear God's voice individually first. Ain't that crazy amazing? God is best known by one's revelation of him for them. That's how I got out a lot of my stuff. Santita, I'm about to shout. It's a lot of things I misunderstood about God. It's a lot of things I was taught about God until I started studying myself. I say, wait a minute, that's not what that meant. And I say often, God is not a God who could be explained. He can only be experienced. If you still explaining God, that's doubtful. It's a strong opportunity if you have not experienced him yet. This is what Jesus meant in Matthew 16 when he said, in response to Peter's comment, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. This was not revealed to you by man, but by God in heaven. Santita, as I run on to a close, using God's word, you'll have the right tune. If you don't use God's word, you'll have the right tune, but you'll be using the wrong language. If you really want God's way of doing things, you have to use God's language, his word, his way. Do you have his will, or are you using your will?
Amen to that. Amen, amen,
Real simple.
amen. No, it's true. It's true. I mean, because we, I was telling one of my dear girlfriends as we go, she will call, bless her heart, and she's one of my prayer partners. And she said, well, what I need you to pray for is, no, I said, I'm not giving God instructions. I will ask God for direction. Okay? I'm not praying for that. That's your will.
And either you are so right, because prayer is for direction. I'm embarrassed that they told us to pray for things you want. Santita,
Well, it's just bad thinking.
You never pray for
it's just bad. It's just bad-mindedness. I mean, and the thing is, we've been misdirected in a lot of ways. So we're supposed to fear death. The Bible tells you to cry at birth and rejoice at death. Everything is off.
Yep.
But we'll talk about
everything's
that.
Off.
Everything's off. But we'll talk about that another day. But everything's off. It's off. It's off. And we need to understand that it's off. And, and that's why we've still been walking around chasing our tails. This is crazy. It's off, everybody. It's off. I love you, Pastor Darius Brooks. Very quickly, how can we worship with you, and how can we get this food at your church?
Great Central Church, 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois, 10:30 till noon. But we a good word. We in and we're out 10:30 till noon. Good song, good word. Well, 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois, every Tuesday from 5 till 7 for 8 different townships and everybody who come. And then on Wednesdays from noon till 2, seniors. So you won't be out at night and you will not leave, not happy.
Amen. Amen. And where can we catch the Tommies very quickly?
Oh, the Tommies are more out of town than we are in town, but you can go to TommiesReunion.com and look at our itinerary, and you'll know exactly where we're going to be in Chicago.
We love you, but we have people all over the country. So go to Tommy's, that's TOMMIES reunion.com so that you can find out where they will be. I promise you, you will be blessed. Love you, Pastor Darius Brooks. We've got Dr. Shanina Knighton, your favorite, with us, infection preventionist, registered nurse. There's so much, Dr. Knighton. What do you want to talk about today?
Good morning, Santita. So I think one of the biggest things right now is just really us. We're embarking upon fall season right now, and we know that it's right around the corner. And so it's just really remaining people to be cognizant of what's happening. You know, I say it, allergy leaves mean fall sneeze. So long story short, people do have fall allergies, may not pay attention to them. The fact that when wet leaves occur, there is dander. Where the spring you had a dander, in the fall you have the mold because of the wet leaves. And long story short, that ends up triggering respiratory symptoms in individuals. So it's being aware of those respiratory symptoms, understanding that you are vulnerable. And what happens is people may, let's say, rub their nose, they may sneeze into their hands, they may do all kinds of things, but and even rub their eyes, right? But recognizing that hand hygiene, again, is still going to be the single most important way for you to prevent and get germs that can lead to infections. So even if you are trying to protect yourself or wipe your eyes because of those sneezes and because of those coughs, is really being aware that at the time for which you are doing so, you could be transmitting some of those germs to your eyes and to your nose and to your mouth. The other thing as well is because children are back at school, because people are back at work, because people are spending more time indoors, it's putting up your own screening measures. And so just reminding people that before, you couldn't go inside of, let's say, an airport without having to fill out a questionnaire online about, have you had any sneezes, coughs, watery eyes within the last past X amount of days? Set up your own screening measures in your own environment to understand what's going on around you, because it's very well possible that because we get so busy with the day-to-day, we don't understand that someone around us very well may be ill, and that's the illness that can actually put us down and put us on our back. Many of us know that it's much more better to be prepared for things than to be unprepared. I'm sure for many of us that are busy, that we cannot afford for our bodies to be sick because we do have so much going on a day-to-day basis. So I do encourage people to think through the fact that right now, yes, COVID numbers are up. COVID is still real. COVID is still around. There are strains right now that are going to be more deadlier for some, less serious for others. But it's just still understanding that it's still here. And so whether we're looking at it as a common cold, whether we're looking at it as similar to the flu, whether we're looking at it as it being its own thing now, because it is a thing in terms of being COVID-19, understand that they all are still respiratory illnesses, respiratory viruses for which there is no cure. And of course, you have to wait out your time to be well. So it's important. Make sure you're screening, make sure you're cleaning your hands, make sure that you're getting proper nutrition and rest, and making sure that after all, like the thing is still be vigilant. Don't let up on your practices, and remember that you are the CEO of your own health, and all it takes is for one time for you to let your guard down, and that can cost you way more time that you can't afford to really spend trying to deal with your illness. So you can prevent getting ill, or you can have to nurse that illness. And you can ask yourself which one is going to take more and which one is going to have worse consequences.
Amen to that. Absolutely. I mean, I think we've got to be vigilant. It's something that, that I'm seeing all the time. But, we were not taught about infection prevention during the pandemic, which is something that I I can't wrap my arms around. And so,
But exactly why now, Santita? Like, think about it, right? Like, H1N1, it was around. They were doing spraying measures in hospitals and stuff. Then it died down, and then infection prevention, like, fell off the radar, and nobody talked about it ever again. And it's the same exact pattern that's happening with COVID. But what I express to people is there are people such as myself who are infection preventionists that when it's not on the news or the radar, when it's not in the media, we're still working within our professions to make sure that we're implementing policies, best practices, and different things just to make sure that people are aware that these bugs do exist. And so, yes, as I mentioned before, while people may hear about COVID, they might hear about RSV, they might hear about some of the ones that seem prominent because they're in the media, there's many other bugs that we're fighting that go unseen that people should be aware of, and that they are there if they just did, the homework to understand. And so that's why I always say, if you do not make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. And in this particular instance, when we are coming upon a time where not every illness has an antibiotic, an antiviral, or an antifungal to be able to treat it, it's more important that we take care of our health in that regard by just preventing anything that we cannot see. And that's by doing activities that are vigilant, that even though they are not measurable, even though we are not rewarded for them outwardly, our bodies is rewarded for it by knowing that we've avoided something that we can't see.
And your health is your reward. How about that? Your health is your reward.
Exactly.
You need to be healthy, everybody. And how can we be healthy? Well, we can be healthy by taking health measures. Dr. Shanina Knighton, everybody. Hey, Dr. Nina, HEYDRNINA. Do that for yourself. Do that for your beloved, for your husband, your wife, your partner. Do it for your children. Do it for all the people in your environment. And thank you, Dr. Knighton, for all that you do. And you know what? Start calling your all media outlets and asking to have Dr. Knighton and infection preventionists on their air. We keep hearing about the next shot, the next medicine every time, and the commercials are, and all these shows are sponsored by Big Pharma. But no one's talking about preventing infections. And Dr. Knighton has said something so profound. She said, hey, let's change our baseline, change your thinking. Let's start knowing that we can be well, not just some people who need to be prepared for sickness. It's a change of thought, everybody. Let's talk about what happened to this young Indian student who was here in the United States. And she was hit by a police car. And police officers were laughing about it. They said she was of limited value. Cut her a check. Cut her family a check for $11,000. Are you serious? I'll get more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute.
WCPT Willow Springs is powered by
Dr.
ComEd.
Knighton?
See how ComEd is preparing our public
Yes, I'm
schools
here.
for
How
a
you
clean
doing?
energy future at
I'm doing good. How are you?
ComEd.com/public
Good.
schools.
Just
This
give me
is
1 minute.
WCPT
Henry?
Veteran Minute. During the Civil War,
Yes,
percent
Hey,
of the
did you
Confederate
just get
Army
the email
was
that I
made up
sent
of
you?
enslaved men.
I did. Yes, it's a YouTube clip of the audio from the
Yes,
from the.
could we open with
And the
that?
Confederate supply.
Yes. Do you want me to play the full thing?
How
During
long?
his
It's
time,
like 2 minutes,
Smalls
though,
learned
right?
as much as he could about
Yeah.
navigating the ship so he and others
Can I
could
hear?
escape.
Can I hear
On May
a
13th,
preview of it?
1862,
Yeah, sure thing.
officers were
Okay.
sleeping. Smalls, along with 16 others, took the planter out of the Charleston harbor, navigating through all 5 checkpoints while heading
Do you hear that?
to waters looking for the Union blockade. Smalls raised a white flag of
No,
surrender,
I don't.
letting Union soldiers board the ship. And
Okay,
guns
it's all right. It's all right.
and documents about planned Confederate.
Bad day for the board to not be working that well.
No,
Small
don't
was
worry
given
about
the
it. This
role
is how you
of the
learn.
Union
Remember, I
Navy
told you that.
captain. Stories
Exactly.
of Smalls are one of the
I listened to the first minute of it or so. Like the laughing and him disregarding her
Yes.
is pretty
Limited
early.
value.
Veteran Minute.
Want me to play up to that point?
Yes, that's the point that I want to catch.
WCPT 820.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
I will listen
Thank
for
you,
that and then
Thank you.
cue you in. Also, I have to grab the second guest. I have CK, but I'm grabbing Dr. Yuri.
For
Okay,
accurate
perfect.
news coverage and factual conversations.
Gotta know what's happening in my city.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820.
Dr. Knighton,
You're listening to WCPT
Yes, I'm here.
820.
I have
Here's
an
the latest
idea,
Chicago
and I
weather
want to talk it
update.
over with you to see if it will make sense to you.
From the Weatherology Weather
About
Center, I'm meteorologist
well,
Jennifer
you know what? I'm going to call
Fuchitsky.
you.
We'll see sunny skies here for
It's
today
about
with a high in the
hygiene and property. I
70s.
think we should
Winds out of the east around
really,
5 to 10 miles per hour. And for tonight, mostly clear,
really
low
have
near
a campaign on
52.
that.
Friday, sunshine, high of 77
Yeah, we
degrees.
doing this
And by
crazy that you
Saturday, a
mentioned
slight
that.
chance for rain showers and storms late, mostly cloudy and a high around 75.
Right now, and
Sunday,
I
slight chance
told
for rain.
The number for Dr. Yuri is just going to like dial tone.
thank you.
Currently,
Supplying
it's
you,
54.
and so
How do you know if
even
your
now,
sump
like, what's the thing?
All right, thank you so much.
Start
You have 2 minutes.
So, no, get Dr. Excuse me, hold on one
We know
second.
the
Get
only way
CK
to
on.
ensure your pumps are in working order.
Can you not hear her?
Why
I cannot, no.
We all
Hold
know
on.
busy
I
lives.
don't know
Most
if
people
the
don't even
doctor
think
can hear
about
me
their
because
sump
she's
pumps until
talking.
there's a big mess in the basement. Permaseal can now offer you exclusively the best solution to keeping your basement and crawl space dry all the time. Introducing the Basement Defender,
Sorry
the
about
only
that, honey. We're
device that
having
will
problems with the
activate
board
and test
today.
your primary and backup pumps every day and alert you to any problems. It will also test and alert you to changes in your basement temperature and humidity levels, which can help avoid frozen pipes and costly mold issues. Our Basement Defender customers have the ultimate peace of mind. They know that their pump equipment is working properly, allowing them to rest peacefully during storms. Call Permaseal and ask about the Basement Defender, 800-421-SEAL, or visit permaseal.net.
If you don't have
Okay,
final
I'm
expense
sending you
insurance,
his
this
number
message
again
is
by
for you.
text.
Life Care provides
All right, we
value.
have a
This is the
minute.
number. Do we have
Help cover
attorney CK
final
Hopper up?
expenses, medical bills.
We should. I have a patch there.
Yes,
Okay.
a final expense
I don't
insurance
hear
policy is
her.
fast, easy, affordable life insurance.
I'm here.
Available to
Can you hear me?
anyone
Yeah,
between
we're
the
having
ages of
trouble with
50
the
and
board
80.
today.
No
Thank
medical
you so much,
exams, no
CK.
lengthy questionnaires, and no
So we
waiting
can't
period.
adjust the
Call Life Care at
the sound,
800-956-0683.
There's just a lot going on.
800-956-0683.
We have 30 seconds. Do you want me to add more time? Or
No.
this is good?
Let's get going.
UTIs.
All right.
That's never worked for me.
I will call up Dr. Yuri as soon as I can, and I will open the segment with the audio.
Worked with
Okay,
doctors
perfect.
to develop
Thank you.
effective urinary
Of course.
products. Eucora is helping over 100,000 women stay healthy. Ready to join them? Get 30% off at eucora.com/radio. That's UQORA.com/radio.
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This
All right, stand by.
diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
And we'll just open with
You're
that.
listening to WCPT
Yep.
820
Great.
because facts matter.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
This video from a Seattle police officer's body-worn camera captures what sounds like a callous disregard for human life.
I think she went up on the hood, hit the windshield, then when he hit the brakes, flew off the car. But she is dead.
That's the voice of SPD officer Detective Daniel Otterer. It's recorded January 24th, one day after a woman, 23-year-old John V. Kundula, was struck and killed by another officer's squad car while that officer was responding to a call. Kundula was in a crosswalk when she was hit by the patrol car that was going 63 miles per hour in a 25-mile-per-hour zone.
It does not seem like there's a criminal investigation going on.
In a different portion of the call, the officer appears to be talking about paying off the victim's family, such as a monetary settlement if the family were to sue the department.
No, it's a regular person. Yeah, just write a check. Just $11,000. She was 26 anyway. She had limited value.
Seattle police say the video.
We got the limited value comment.
Wow, everybody.
Say
What
the
do you think
Office of
about
Police
that?
Accountability-
John V. Kundula had come to the United States for graduate work, and this is what happened. She was at a crosswalk, walking across the crosswalk. It's a 25-mile-per-hour driving zone. The car was going at 63 miles per hour, the police car, and they were in pursuit. Get it? And she was hit. And and you just heard the officer describe it. Her body was hit, went over the top of the car, and they just kept on going. And now they say that she had limited value. Cut the check for $1,000, keep it moving. She was so young after all. The report is that she was actually 23. So she was over here trying to do graduate work, trying to improve her life. And look at what happened. Look at what happened. So I want you to call me. Let me know what you think. It's 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. What do you think about the police officer saying that that her life had limited value? That's always cut a check for $11,000. Can you imagine people who are sworn to protect you feel that your life has limited value? And yes, race is at the heart of it. Gender is at the heart of it. Just our value, the value that we place on some lives as opposed to others, or just life in general. Think about that. She had limited value. And to hear these police officers in Seattle laughing about her killing, laughing about her death, it's just unbelievable. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Would the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act help any of that? What should be done with these police officers? What should happen? Because they seem they don't seem like they're not right. And I'm not going to make people crazy. I don't believe in doing that. Crazy belongs in a padded room. Some people are morally depraved. And we have to deal with that. We have to deal with the fact that we have a morality issue in America today and in the world today. And we got to deal with that. You give the people of Lahaina $700 per family. That's because they're of limited value, because they're poor, working class, and indigenous to Hawaii. We don't even bother visiting East Palestine, Ohio. We act as if that problem is over. They're of limited value. The coal miners in Appalachia are of limited value. The people on the west side of Chicago and the south side of Chicago and in Compton, they're of limited value. Spanish Harlem, they're of limited value. The indigenous people, they're of limited value. When are we going to stop this? Let's talk about that. And now the Indian consulate is getting involved. Now, mind you, that is happening while the money of the world is being reorganized. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and the global South are reorganizing. Nearly 40% of the world economies are moving over there, away from us. They're about to come up with their own currency. Do you think this makes India feel good about the United States? You think that's not a discussion in India? Most of the stories that I got about this particular incident, Attorney C.K. Hoffler and Reverend Dr. Todd Deary Esquire, I got from India, from Indian newspapers. This is an outrage over there to 1.4 to 1.5 billion people. Now, you help me out, Attorney C.K. Hoffler. What do you make of this limited value? What is that?
Well, Santita, I've done injury work, catastrophic injury work for probably almost 3 decades, almost 30 years, most of my professional career. And what do I make of it? This is very, very common. There is very little value that is placed on lives of Black and brown people. And I say that people, there's a lot of criticism that injury lawyers get. And I know because I'm in this position, it's one of my practice areas, because they'll say, well, when there's a police brutality case, you've got all these lawyers that are positioning to get all this money for the families. When there's a injury case, all these lawyers are positioned to get money for the families. And people make light of it and they think it's just a money grab. Because there are people who do not value the lives of Black and brown people. There's no question about that. And it's very deep. It goes to the insurance adjusters. It's not just these police officers who are laughing. That is callous. It's wrong. It's bad. I hope they're disciplined. I hope that something very serious happens to them in terms of the accountability for being that flagrant in their disregard of human life. But we need to understand that this is not uncommon. I live in this world. I live in this world professionally, deal with insurance adjusters and litigate cases. And we end up litigating cases because the insurance adjusters and insurance companies place so little value on the lives, particularly of Black and brown people. So when they're in an accident, when they have catastrophic injuries, they do have a matrix. If you lose a leg, it's worth this. If you lose an arm, if your brain dead, all this kind of stuff, they make value decisions. If you are African American, if you're an African American male versus being a white male versus being a white female versus being someone who's indigenous versus someone who's East Indian, someone who's West Indian, they're all Latino. They're all of these matrix and biases, if you will, that are built into the system of how they value a life. And I can tell you, having litigated cases on how they value a life, I prefer to put it in the hands of a jury. And that's why these cases are litigated. But now a lot of them are settled. So when these police officers so cavalierly, or this one officer was saying, oh, they'll just, $11,000 for a life because she has no value, they were espousing a view that many have, that many people have. So I'm not surprised, Santita. I'm disgusted by it. I am angered by it, but I'm not surprised because I live in this space. And it is because of the fight of many lawyers consistently who are not afraid to litigate that there's even a higher value than there was. And that's the reality of where we live here. I had not heard of this story, Santita, until you brought it to my attention.
Attorney Daryl Jones brought it to mind. I missed it. But but I'm telling you, when I started to find out about the story, when he sent me the YouTube clip, when I looked for the story, the stories that I found about the story were in India. I said, whoa, that's a problem. That's 1.4, 1.5 billion people while we're reorganizing our money. If you want to take it there. I mean, and how does this make us look to the people of India? How's that? I mean,
of course it makes us look terrible. Of course it makes us look callous because this one officer's cavalier attitude and laughing about it.
With his partner, with a partner. There was a male and a female, right?
Right, just laugh about it. And throwing that out. But I don't want anyone to believe that this is an unusual, a one-time thing.
Okay.
It is not. There's an entire industry that is dedicated to lowballing the value of the life to save money for the insurance companies. Like when you go and you get your insurance for your vehicle, when you get your insurance for your home, and when you are facing a catastrophic situation, something happens in your home and you have homeowners insurance, or you've got an umbrella policy, you get in a devastating accident. If you don't pay that insurance, you will lose that insurance coverage. But you pay so that when you need it, when you're in that accident, you have coverage. So the insurance companies will honor that. Or, Lord forbid, if you cause someone else to be injured, you pay so that you have coverage, so that that family doesn't go after you individually because there's enough coverage that you paid for. But what you may not realize, and I've seen this a lot, you as an individual, if you cause danger in an accident, if you are liable for an accident, you're expecting the insurance company will settle, will do the right thing. If you've got a policy, let's say you have a 2550 policy, or you have a $500,000 insurance policy for your automobile vehicle, which most people don't have that high. But let's say you do, and someone is killed in an automobile accident, and you are the fault, you are the cause of that. You may tell your insurance company, settle the claim, give them the money, and they'll say, oh, no, we're not doing that. And they will nitpick and find little arguments here and there, and they're valuing the life of the person that you killed. And if they are brown, and if they're a student, or Lord forbid, they don't have a job or something like that, they will place a value and say this person is of a limited value, and they will negotiate from that vantage point, even though you, as the insured, believe that it should be settled. That's an inherent conflict. That's an inherent conflict. So I'm not surprised. I'm saddened by it, but I'm not surprised because I live in this world every day.
Well, I mean, Reverend, what do you think? I mean, because, of course, we saw what happened to Freddie Gray in Baltimore. This just happens this happens a lot. And, let me just say this. All police officers don't feel this way. So let's not go down that road because it's not true. Indeed, you have a lot of Black police officers who were able to get onto the force in the 60s, who joined the police force so that they could have, number one, they wanted to serve the community. They wanted to make sure that wait a minute, we need people who have cultural sensitivity. And you have white police officers and brown and people of all particular backgrounds who join the police force trying to do that. So let's be clear. Let's not let's root out the bad apples and the bad attitudes. Let's not go after the police because we need them. If you still have a problem, Reverend Dr. Yuri, you're still going to call the police. They run into a dangerous situation, not away from it like I would do. So that having been said, what do you make of this? Limited value? Reverend Dr. Yuri, I mean, really?
Good morning, Santita. Good morning, Madam Chair. I want to go upstream and start with a little leaven leavens the whole loaf. You don't need a lot of poison to kill you, just enough to overwhelm your system. So you have a pursuit in response to an overdose call where a police officer is driving 74 miles an hour in a downtown district. This young woman is in the crosswalk. Police officers are required to use due care even when in responding with emergency lights and sirens, and assuming that those are on. And this young woman is struck and killed. This offending officer who's having the conversation is the one who is called to verify that there was no alcohol, no drugs in the system of the officer who was responding to the call. Now, the reason that's important, and it gets back to CK's point about the follow-up, there's going to be a wrongful death suit. The estate, someone on behalf of the estate, is going to allege, and they should, that the responding police officer was reckless, and then there was reckless disregard as confirmed on the back end about the attitude of this officer. Therefore, the questions about whether or not there were drug systems, the analysis, drugs in the system, the analysis of the driver's potential impairment is going to be an issue at trial. It's going to create an issue for the jury. And now what you're going to have is the city of Seattle, a municipal corporation, is going to be on the hook. And so this assertion that the value is only $11,000 is not so. The international implications, because the consulate, the Indian consulate, is now involved, is because this has an issue around adhering to international human rights principles, the human dignity of all people. And so when you have an officer who is empowered with the ability to affect someone's liberty and life, who is part of an investigation, and their attitude being communicated to a counterpart, a supervisor who has to get this report, is so callous, so indifferent to the human dignity of this now deceased young woman. It informs then why we have the kinds of issues. To CK's point, this is why we have litigation. But it's also why folks need to understand that 1983 cases, that's the statute that often is impacted or utilized in these cases. These are hard cases to take on because what you end up with is the kind of obfuscation that's indicated by this responding officer's comments, right? This officer's attitudes about how he did his investigation and reached that the driving officer was not impaired. All of this stuff comes into play, and it's in Seattle. I've got a case similar, a police pursuit case in Maryland. We hear it all over the country, and the vast majority of them, by the way, do not make the news. And so you have this ongoing culture of leaven that is contaminating the whole loaf, which means then that all of the departments need to be pushed. All of these municipalities need to be pushed to make sure that they do not have these attitudes of bias that go right to the core of how police response is done, how enforcement's done, how investigations are done, and who is adversely impacted in the process. It is to assign a value. There is a value for her life. It's going to go before a jury. But when the police officer who is part of the investigatory team already goes in with a bias. You already know that whatever the findings are that come out of this investigation are going to be tainted and now must be tested. That requires now that I think the Department of Justice needs to get involved and begin to dig deeper into just how pervasive this attitude is in the city of Seattle's police department, and to find out if there is indeed now a pattern or practice of such attitudes throughout all of their investigations. And let's just see how bad it is. And let's get rid of the leaven that's in the loaf before there is another death that is ascribed this low value that affects the impact of how all people should be engaged when it comes to this notion of protecting and serving.
Let's go to Robert. Robert, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Santita.
Hey.
Good morning. I come from sort of a two-world. My mother was law enforcement, and so was my grandfather. And I'm seeing this, and I'm just like, we really need to start monitoring who we give a badge to. We need to tear their lives apart. I'm sorry, but I mean, we give them a power that we don't give any other person in this country. And if you noticed, there's something else that I want people to notice. If you noticed, when you're out here driving around and on these cars, when I grew up, it used to say on the police cars, on the squad cars, to serve and protect. It's not there anymore. It's not on the squad cars anymore. They've taken them off. Okay. Now, when my grandfather was a law enforcement officer, he had a car. He's a deputy sheriff, and it said to serve and protect. And so was my mother, to serve and protect. It's not there anymore. We need to start tearing these people's lives apart, because they are part of organizations like the alt-right, like the skinheads, like the Ku Klux Klan, and they are causing chaos in our country, and it needs to be dealt with. And I guess that's all I got to say.
Well, no, that's a whole lot. I mean, because you have lived with people who put their lives on the line every day. And I have lived with some police officers. I mean, Renault Robinson, who just passed away here, God rest his soul. These people fought, to get on the force, Black officers in particular, to get on the force, but also to bring humanity to policing. But see, now we're not protected as much as we are policed. And I think, Robert, we have to look at that. I mean, I think you made a brilliant point. Protect and serve. No. That's off. I mean, they've become our jailers. I mean, we don't even talk about people who you have the right to protest. We call them, we don't even call them demonstrators. They're protesters. They're the enemies of the state. I mean, and now this is an international incident, Robert.
Right out of the gate.
I mean, out of the gate. But guess what? There was a conservative talk show host out in Seattle who got the statement from Mr. Alterer, who is the police officer who they caught on tape, and he said that his statement was understood. He said, I intended the comment as a mockery of lawyers. I laughed at the ridiculousness of how these incidents are litigated and the ridiculousness of how I watch these incidents play out as two parties bargain over a tragedy. The station reported that Alterer acknowledged in the statement that anyone listening to his side of the conversation alone would rightfully believe I was being insensitive to the loss of life. But the comment was not made with malice or a hard heart. Quite the opposite. What is your reading of this, CK? Very quickly, because I want to hear from, we only have a few minutes left in the segment. I want to hear from you too, Reverend Dr. Yeary. I mean, because we saw this with Freddie Gray. You saw his leg dragging before they put him in the paddy wagon. You knew something was wrong with this boy. You knew something was, well, let me start with you, Reverend Dr. Yeary. You knew that he had been injured, grievously injured. That's what it looked like to me, just as a layperson, because he couldn't, his one of his legs was immobilized. It was dragging. What is this? Because he's able to get on conservative radio and say, that's not what I meant. I was joking about. It's not funny. And I don't believe him. Besides, You just heard the audio, Reverend Dr. Yeri.
Well, the first thing is if you heard the audio and he didn't just start his body worn camera at that part of the conversation, the whole conversation from his point of view is recorded. You'd be able to put it in context. So that can be easily verified and tested. That's one. But in terms of seeing it in the pattern, going back to Freddie Gray, it starts with this notion that somehow or other certain people's rights are primed to be violated. You end up seeing Freddie Gray being dragged to the car after being injured from the pursuit where he is tackled. Because what started that Sunday morning is Freddie Gray didn't want to be harassed by the police. And when he saw the police that Sunday morning, he ran from the police. Because in the hood, when you don't want to be jammed up, that's what you do. They used his running to justify pursuing him because he must have been doing something wrong. Then they tackle him, injure him, throw him in the back of a van without securing him with a seatbelt, take him on a rough ride where his spine is severed, and he dies in the hospital several days later. We got to... The whole story, the impact of the immediate imagery is shocking enough. But when you tell the whole story, as CK has said, not only does it turn your stomach, it raises your blood pressure, and it really peeves you. I could say something else, but I know we on radio.
Thank you. Well, Attorney CK Hoffler, I've got 1 minute left. Your thoughts? What do we do?
Well, first of all, when it comes to evidence, someone's words and excited utterance right there after something is happening around the same time, you just speak and they don't lie. So let him deal with how a jury will interpret that. Because you can, after the fact, create a whole bunch of narratives. But the fact is, those words should never have come out of his mouth. Number one, not even in a joking fashion, even if we assume what he's saying is true, which I don't believe. Secondly, Santita, these cases are quite common, these pursuit cases, so much so, and that people are killed as a result of hot pursuit with the police or pursuing someone, say, who stole a vehicle that's insured, by the way. So an insurance company will make that vehicle whole or make the person, the owner of the vehicle, whole. And I had a case where an entire 2 generations of a family wiped out completely because of this kind of pursuit. This is outrageous. This is outrageous, but we need to know what happens every day, not an isolated incident. And these attitudes are very common, whether it's the police or the insurance company. And I'm glad that it's captured on tape so that people can hear this. And the jury, if it ever gets to a jury, can hear that as well. And hopefully that evidence won't be excluded by a judge.
Well, I hope so, because this is unacceptable. Unacceptable. And I don't believe the police officer. I'm with you. Like, you know what? You know exactly what you were doing. You know what you were talking about. You thought this was funny. You thought it was funny. Shame on you. And God bless her family. They didn't know this was going to happen to this child when she got over here. Oh. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show. Do you think you need to have high net worth to get a financial advisor? Well, I'm telling you, you do not. You do not. So let's talk about it. You do not have to be rich to have a financial advisor. You don't. You can be working class, you can be middle class, and these are the people to do it. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Thank you, guys.
WCPT 820 is seeking a highly motivated part-time radio sales executive to generate revenue for the station by establishing long-term business relationships with new clients and maintain or nourish current business relationships. We're looking for someone who passionately believes in the progressive mission, celebrates inclusion, appreciates our unique platform, and would enjoy representing Chicago's progressive talk. Please email your resume to jobs@WCPT820.com. No phone calls, please. Newsweb Radio Company is an equal opportunity workplace and is an affirmative action employer.
So,
at the YMCA,
thank you so much.
Starts by making an impact together.
I think this is just another example of how we look.
It can be the gift of time or treasure, supporting a community through talent without measure. Here, compassion fuels commitment, finding fulfillment through enrichment, serving and improving. What a way to
you know what? Hold on a second. Henry, is there any way to adjust the volume?
Get involved today.
Yeah, that's all I can do. I can turn it off.
Okay, then turn it off so that they can be heard. Okay, great. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Mm-hmm. CK.
I'm glad there will be international, drawn to this. But Santita, until we fundamentally start changing the way we in this country perceive things, it's not going to make a difference, because a lot of these, there are UN occupations that come out and talk about some of the horrific treatment of surrounding George Floyd's murder of African Americans and Latino people in this country. And it amounts to an international proclamation, but nothing really changes here in this country. And until those attitudes change and we stop perceiving things differently, we're not going to see a difference. We're going to be outraged by this because it happens so frequently. Again, I live in this space and see it every day.
This is unbelievable. And you know what? When my father has to go to the Ryan Rehabilitation Center, you see a lot of people who've been injured by the police because they have a fast track into that center. And you see a lot of folks who've been injured by the police. You see a whole lot of folks. You've seen it when you've gone to visit Reverend, haven't you?
Absolutely. I have.
Okay.
And you know what? Santita, pursuit cases have been so deadly that in some jurisdictions they're outlawed. So, for example, in some counties in the Atlanta metropolitan area, police officers are not allowed to do hot pursuit cases in certain neighborhoods. And I had one case in particular where there was hot pursuit, and where the two generations of a family completely wiped out. And the police officers knew that they shouldn't do it in that area, but they were so intent on getting this 14 or 15-year-old who stole a vehicle. And by the way, they never caught him.
Of course not.
But they killed a grandmother and her two grandkids who were on their way to church.
Unbelievable.
Yep. So it is something for us. It's important to talk about it, and it's important for us here in this country to, it's an international incident, absolutely, but in this country we need to be sensitive to it, because the change is not going to come, I believe, through international pressure on this. It's going to come through domestic pressure on this issue.
Well, I tell you, we're going to have to do something, because it is an international issue, right?
It is.
And
we have to hold people accountable. When they make these kind of statements, when they make these kind of, hold them accountable. There needs to be some penalty for this. It can't be, we'll go home on paid administrative leave for a week and then come back. No, hold people accountable.
I agree.
But until that happens, there's not going to be a change.
Well, when we decide that there needs to be a change, there will be. Just that simple. Just that simple. We can do this. We can. So we'll see. We'll see. And the way he described her being, being hit, I was like, are you serious right now? You've got to be joking me. Oh. Well, you all, I am going to move on to this next topic, because we're moving through these things today. But it's
okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, I wish I could answer all of your calls, but I've got to get on to this, because we're going to be talking about financial literacy and a financial advisor in particular. Do you know that you can have a financial advisor even if you are not wealthy? In fact, that's when you need it the most. But most financial advisors only go toward those who have high net worth. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that with Ron Whittingham of the Megan Financial Group. Ron, are you there?
I'm here, Santita. Good morning.
I'm glad that you're with us today.
Happy to be here.
Okay, thank you. It's not like pulling teeth. I got to play with you a little bit.
Not at all.
I know you're like, oh no, but really, I keep coming across a lot of articles that talk about financial advisors, and there's one in particular. Thank you so much. How to find a financial advisor if you're not rich, and I'd like to to go right there. you don't have to be rich. You don't have to be rich. So I am very excited that you're here with us today.
Excited to be here, Santita. No, we so my firm, we I've been doing this for 23 years, and we started out with a niche, and that niche was a lot of the building trades union folks here in Chicagoland. So a lot. I mean, I refer to our clients as the mass affluent. A lot of financial advisors have $500,000 minimums that you need to invest with them. We don't have minimums.
Well, no,
so
hold that thought, because I want you to tell the audience that, because that's real important information. Very, very important information. Really, that's because you all do things very differently, which is why I'm glad to be working with you. And just let's let
Stand
people
by.
know how they can. Thank you so much. Get into you. I mean, how they can get
We
to
can
you.
change the
Stand by.
world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can change the world. We can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want to hear you today as we talk about getting financial literacy. Of course, we just talked about the Janavi Kandula case in Seattle, Washington, in which the police officer was laughing about her killing. We'll be continuing to look at that case. But right now we're talking about financial literacy and financial advisors who really target the working and middle class. You don't have to have high financial net worth to be with Beckett Financial. They're one of the rare firms who occupy this space. So they look at working people who live paycheck to paycheck very differently, but they also show you how to grow your money. How to handle your money. I don't care how much you make or how little you believe you make. There's a way for you to make it in this society, and they will show you the way. So let's talk to them about this at 773-763-9278. You might have a question. 773-763-WCPT. No, you do not need to be rich. You do not need to have high net worth to get a financial advisor, particularly if you go to Naked Financial. So everybody will be talking about the economy with Dr. Maxwell at the bottom of the hour. Why are these wages not moving? Let's get to the Santita Jackson Show headlines. The UAW, the United Auto Workers, could go on strike after their contract expires tonight at midnight. That's 150,000 auto workers are seeking a 36% pay increase over 4 years, shorter working hours, and the restoration of benefits lost in negotiations in the 2008 Great Recession. You recall in 2008, the auto companies were in big trouble, so the workers made concessions. They gave up money to save the corporations. The corporations made more money than ever before, and they did not make good on their promises to the workers. Also, they're asking for a 32-hour work week. They said, corporate media, for 40 hours worth of work. That's not exactly true. Real wages have not moved in 50 years, everybody. They've not moved in 50 years. People are not able to get off of work. And in this economy, people are being threatened if they leave work, that they won't have a job to come back to. There are a lot of things at stake. Keep digging down on the issues because we're all workers here. A federal court has once again declared DACA illegal. Last night, a ruling by a Texas judge stopped the federal program that protects from deportation undocumented immigrants brought to the U.S. as young children. Thousands remain missing in Libya, as many as 20,000. They say that bodies are strewn everywhere after destructive flooding, sending the people of Libya our love and prayers and assistance. Reach out to see if they need any help, and I know that they do. An escaped killer, wow. Danilo Cavalcante was finally captured in Pennsylvania after a 13-day manhunt. A tactical team moved in and a canine dog subdued him yesterday. Thankfully, now that community can feel safe. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 68 degrees. In Minneapolis, 81 degrees. Major League Baseball, the Royals 7, the White Sox 1, the Rockies 7, the Cubs 3, the Rays 5, the Twins 4. In the WNBA, well, we had a tough night in Minneapolis and Chicago. The Aces 87, the Sky 59, the Sun 90, the Lynx 60, but we'll come back. In the NFL, the Vikings will be playing the Eagles tonight. Can't wait to see what's going to happen there. So let's get right to it. Ron Whittingham of Megant Financial, I'm so excited. They are sponsors of the show. I'm glad to be working with them. And one of the reasons that I wanted to work with them was because they're doing something to me that's quite interesting and novel. They work with working class and middle class people as financial advisors. Most of us think, you have to go downtown to the business district, to a highfalutin office to get financial advice. And oftentimes that is true. 99% of the time, that is true. They have a different approach. They said, no, working class, middle class people, you need a financial advisor too. And we're here for you. Welcome back to the show, Ron Whittingham.
Thanks. It's Santita. Great to be here.
It's great to be. It's great to have you here. And I thank you so much for the work that you do. And I'm glad that you're working with us. How to find a financial advisor if you're not rich? Do you need to be rich to have a financial advisor? What's your philosophy?
Like we spoke before during the break there, I've been doing this for 23 years, and we just started with a small niche, working class people here in Chicago. We work a lot with the labor unions, explain their benefits, make sure they understand their benefits, maximize those benefits. So we've really just only been working, I call them mass affluent people. They're not traditionally high net worth clients. A lot of financial advisors out there, you have to have $500,000 to invest just to get in the door. And we're the opposite of that. And I think, our clients are, they need the help. They don't have access to that knowledge. And, we're here to do that for them. And, we're expanding, we've been focusing on the union world. And the good thing about that is a lot of these benefits, you were talking about the UAW, a lot of the benefits, they're built for these members of the unions. They have pensions. Not all of us have pensions. They have retiree medical, some of them. Not all of us, none of us have access to that. So we've really expanded outside of the scope of the building trades and just trying to help everybody understand what the retirement plan is. And if they don't have one, to make sure they start one as soon as possible.
Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Did you know that you do not have to have high net worth in order to get a financial advisor? That's why you need to look into Megant Financial. Talk to me. Number one, what's your number? How can people reach you?
Sure. Yeah. So our number, we have 3 locations here in the city, Orland Park, Oak Brook, and in the city. Our phone number is 708-444-1090, or they can find us on the internet at megent.com.
Many people, as I've been doing some research, as I've been looking at you and the work that you do, oftentimes I see a lot of articles about the struggles that middle class people, that working class people have getting good, solid financial advice. And we're, of course, watching the UAW workers. They could go on strike tonight. That would be a big deal. But, they're not looking to, they're just looking to get enough money to keep their heads above water. I mean, what do you say to people? I mean, because most of us, a financial advisor, you're talking about saving when people cannot afford to have, they don't have enough money on hand. Many people are behind on rent. Many people can't go to the hospital for an emergency room visit, and on and on and on. How do you start with people who are kind of starting behind the 8 ball, if you will?
Yeah, there's really 4 tenets to, financial literacy. And financial literacy is, all it really is defined as the knowledge to make smart decisions about your money. So, that's where you kind of have to start. And it all starts with a budget, Santita. There's money coming in, there's money going out, there's wants and needs. And that's where you have to start. I mean, it's terrible, but you have to set aside a lot of people, especially with inflation now, like you said, you can't make the rent, education, medical bills, food, gas. I have to have a car and put gas in my car to get to work. I mean, all those things have to happen, but you have to save for retirement because you don't want to be working, when you're too old to work. I had a client that had a neighbor. Now, my client was an electrician, a local 134 electrician. And he was awarded Social Security disability. He was 55 years old, so he's very young. And when you're awarded disability, that means you're done. You're done earning. So it's a very scary thing. And at 55, that's a young age to do that. But this man had defined benefit plans. He had pensions that paid him every month. He had a 401k plan. He has retiree medical. His wife's currently working. But he was scared because his neighbor, who wasn't in a union, had to go back at the age of 70.
Oh, wow.
And that's where we fail. That's where we failed that person. That person, didn't have the knowledge to make smart decisions at some point with his money, or maybe he was just forced into a situation. But that's where we have to make sure that you're not forced in that situation. You don't want to go back to work when you're 70, 75, 80 years old. That's just not what you want to do. We have failed that person. So, and I know it's hard. You have money coming in, you have money going out, but you have to set aside some money for down the road. And that's the first thing that we defer, as things get tight, when things cost more money, when there is a financial crisis, things like that. The first thing that we cut is retirement because it's so far off in a lot of our minds. But you're going to have an impact, and you're going to be that 7-year-old if you don't have a plan and stick with the plan as a young person.
Is there like a cutoff? Are there some people, just working class people who we see, say, working in the fast food industry, servers who can make a lot of money in these restaurants? But is there anyone who you would say, maybe you shouldn't be a client?
So we sit with everybody, and obviously we don't charge for a consultation, and then we'll create a plan for that person. Whoever we all need to start somewhere, so we can sit with somebody and get that started. And to be honest with you, Santita, it's better to educate these younger people, because you want the earlier you start this process, the more successful you're going to be down the road. The earlier you can retire, the more options that you'll have. And we just want to explain that to people. We want to explain investing. We want to explain, savings, taxation, all that stuff. And, financial literacy, you want to have a basic understanding on that, but you have to have access to professionals. Like I had somebody that I'm in finance. This is what I've done. I understand a lot of these different things, but I don't understand everything. I have a professional who does my taxes. You have to have an attorney that does different things. So you have to trust people. We act as a fiduciary. We manage $1.5 billion here in Chicago, and it's all individuals. It's not their 401k plans or their employer plans. It's the mass affluent.
And why do you call them the mass affluent?
Well, they're not traditionally high net worth, but I believe they have a lot of money. So, they have, and again, Santita, our niche is the unions, and the unions, these pensions that they all have, it makes them pretty wealthy, in my opinion, mass affluent down the road. And sure, they can't go to the bank and take whatever money's behind that pension out. So they don't have access to that. But there's real wealth that is behind that defined benefit plan that they've worked years and years and years for. So, I refer to them as the mass affluent. I believe they're high net worth, but by a traditional sense, by a definition, they're not referred to as high net worth clients.
Well, I guess if they work collectively, like you have in churches, different clubs, birthday month clubs and on and on and on. Do you think it would be helpful? Would you be accepting of, say, these clubs of 5, 10, 15, 30 people who want some financial advice, and, who would come to Megant Financial? Because there are all kinds of groups, not just union groups that have hundreds and thousands of people. You have in these churches, you have a lot of groups, within the churches, right? I mean, would you be open to advising people like that?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter where the group comes from. It's we're here to help people understand if they have a plan. Because a lot of these people in the churches may belong to a union. Maybe they don't, but they still need to have a retirement plan. So we're here to talk to anybody, and we're open to speak in front of any group, Santita.
What do you think we miss about retirement plans, particularly? Okay, say you're in college, or you're finishing your vocational training and you're about to get your job. Is that like the prime time when you get your first paycheck to start right there, and maybe even coming out of high school? I mean, getting financial literacy, because most of us just have no idea, because you start getting solicited when you come out of high school, whether you are on the college campus or you're just out here walking through the airport. People are trying to get you to get a charge card, right?
Yeah, you're being solicited by the bad stuff, and all of a sudden you're a young kid and you want this shiny new object, and hey, I can just put this on a charge card. But what you don't understand is you don't pay that off. I mean, you're paying a lot more for whatever that item is. And I was trying to think back. I don't remember. I know I went to school here on the South Side, and there wasn't any financial planning or financial literacy or the basic tenets of that. So I really don't even know, where I started this. I know I was intrigued by that ticker tape at the bottom of the financial thing. And that's kind of like what I first was drawn to. But, there isn't a lot of this knowledge. And the sooner you start to have a basic understanding on money and the impact of it and saving, the better off you're going to be. And it's one of those things, if you don't understand it, it just sits in that pile on the desk. And sure, maybe you have a job and here's a 401k plan, and all of a sudden you're getting all these mailings about, here's your 401k plan. Here's what the match is. What does that mean? You have a Roth version of your 401k. What does that mean? I mean, there isn't a lot of knowledge. And when people don't understand something, and I'm one of them, I just don't want to deal with it. There's other things going on in life. Kids are busy. You're busy. And if you don't understand it, you're just gonna not deal with it. At least that's what I do. I can't fix anything in my house. I mean, if it's broken, I just don't look at it because I can't fix it and I don't understand it. So, and that's where the whole having access to professionals is a problem, because traditionally, you have to have a lot of money to have access to a lot of financial professionals. And how did you get there? Did it just show up? On the money tree outside? I mean, no, it didn't. You got there somehow. So the people who don't have money don't have access to that. You and I were talking a couple of days ago that, this financial literacy thing is a big hot topic now. And I saw on CNBC that Morgan Stanley is creating a financial planning program for college athletes. Now, they're doing this because obviously they'll probably be high net worth individuals at some point in time.
They're not doing it for the rest of the students. They're doing it for them.
No, and that's what I'm talking about. It just goes to show you that these financial companies go after the big bucks. And my whole point is, what about the rest of us? Why don't we have it? Why doesn't somebody have access to financial literacy? And it's just, again, working with blue collar, working class people my whole career. It's a great fit. I mean, sure, is it a bad day when they all call, when the stock market's volatile and you have 6,000 clients? Yeah, the phone. It's a bad day for us, but it's an important job.
We're talking with Ron Whittingham, Megan Financial. These financial advisors target to serve working class, middle class people, and they're expanding so they can find our high school students who are going into the workforce, college students who are going into the workforce. You see these big financial institutions are now going for these college athletes because they're able to sign deals now, these NIL deals. But what about the rest of the students on the campus? What about the students who are getting vocational education, people who come out of high school, who go get the best training so that they can become part of our, our plumbers, our contractors? I mean, that particular track of professionalism in America, they're being left behind. They're being pushed off to the side. And that could be you. It could be your club at your church. It could be your sorority, your fraternity, your group, your block club. These people want to come and help you so that you can hold on to your home, so that you can retire with grace and with dignity. Indeed, that is what the UAW potential strike is about. It's about having grace and dignity and having some financial options. What do you do? I only have about 3 minutes or so here. I mean, do you teach people? I mean, do you help them to invest their money? Do you advise them, okay, this is how much you make, this is what you need to save? What do you just walk me through a consultation with Megan Financial? Like when I sit down with you, what's going to happen?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, you mentioned the trades, vocational carpenters, plumbers, electricians. Obviously, what we do is we have an intimate knowledge on all of the retirement plans. So we just explain that, what their retirement package looks like. I always say that with the unions, their benefits are their best kept secret. They do a really good job creating them, but they don't do a good job letting their participants know, like educating them on what they mean and the impact that they'll have. So if you have a retirement plan, we take a look at it and we explain it to you and make sure you understand it. If you don't have a retirement plan, like most of us, we just explain what you need to do to create one. It's what you need to do. It's almost like an easy math. You sit there and say, all right, Ron, I'm going to have Social Security when I retire. I want to have another $40,000 a year. And to create that, it's really just an easy math equation here. So you take the $40,000. Okay, I want that when I'm 65. You add a zero and you multiply it times 2. So that if you want $40,000, add the zero, it's $400,000. Multiply times 2. You have to have $800,000 to create that $40,000 at the age of 65 when you want to retire. Wow. So obviously, the earlier you start, the better off you're going to be to get to that number. If you're older, you're behind the 8 ball. If that's what you want, you're going to have to work longer. So we just kind of make a plan for that individual, find out what they want to live on, and then we create that plan. And then as we go along in life, we just visit with them and make sure that they're kind of not going off the tracks.
What is your number? How can we get in touch with you?
Sure. 708-444-1090.
You know what? If you can't come back next week, I'd like you to get someone from your company to come back next week. Because one of the things I found is that just what we do, just if people hear this becomes just on a regular basis, this becomes part of their consciousness and they start thinking differently. Because I have friends who've lost their jobs and they're like, well, I'm not going to do this right now. I'm like, yeah, but I'm wondering if you're still able to save, which is very, very hard when an income is taken away from you. Just to talk about that. And I'd like to know what you would say to these UAW workers should they go on strike. I mean, how do you make it? Because you're not getting a paycheck then, right? So there's a lot going on, and you need to have a financial advisor who can guide you through as they say in church, the vicissitudes of life, the ups and downs. Make it financial, everybody. You don't have to be rich to have a financial advisor. What's that number again, Ron Whittingham?
708-444-1090.
I'm telling you, we're going to have you or someone that you designate next week. Because we need to understand our money. Sending you so much love. Dr. Max Wolf coming up, everybody. Real wages haven't moved in 50 years. What's up? Back in just a minute. Thank you, Ron Whittingham. He
just left.
Might have gone already. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Look, you don't have to be rich to have a financial advisor. You don't have to be rich to have a financial advisor. So think about that, everybody. Think about it. And more than that, let's do something about it. Let's get some good advice. All right. Sending you so
We
much
have
love.
Dr. Wolf on the line.
Dr. Max Wolf, how are you? Oh, I can't hear. I can barely hear him now.
He just got dropped. Let me call him back real quick.
Okay.
right, there he is.
Dr. Wolf? Dr. Wolf? Hey, Dr. Wolf. Dr. Max Wolf. Is he there? I can't hear him.
He's there, but I'm also not hearing him.
Okay. Okay, let's Dr. Wolf? Okay, what's going on here? Let's see. Dr. Wolf? Okay. You think we're having another one of these crazy problems?
I'm not sure. The phones have all been fine so far.
Well, let's figure out why he can't respond to me. Is he responding to you on the telephone?
No.
Okay.
I think he might have stepped away.
Okay. We need to know something because I hate to come onto the air and not have him there.
Good morning.
Okay, good. Okay, great. We're beginning to freak out here. How you doing? Dr. Wolf? Dr. Wolf?
Hello.
Can you hear
here.
me?
I hear you guys.
Okay, no, I just need to make sure. All right. Very, very good.
Okay.
All right. Great. Okay. All right, great. Okay, so now I can breathe. Okay.
Breathing's good.
Oh, it's okay. Now, if your sound is distorted, I want to need to get you into the right place.
Okay. It shows full signal. I can switch the headsets. Maybe that's good.
That's better. Whatever you
Hold
just
on.
did you just do something?
No.
Okay.
I'd love to take credit for it, but I didn't move or change anything.
Are you on a headset? You are on a headset?
I am. Yep. I can switch to a new one. I have an older one and a newer one.
Okay, let me hear.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Opening the box. New one's never been used.
Okay. It's just I'm like hearing you intermittently.
Uh-oh. Okay, hold on.
Hey,
that's
Nicole. Good. Hey, D-Ray. The weather here is beautiful. It's sunny. It's going to be positively fall-like today.
Back in 30.
Better now?
Thank you.
This is the new headset.
Yeah, it's a little better. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, fantastic. All right. I told you we just had this the owner
I heard the end of him, Meggitt Financial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they focus on middle and working class people, which is like really novel. They've become sponsors of the show, and I'm really excited about that because I like people who have a different kind of approach that's inclusive.
Yeah.
Stand by.
Are they Chicago-based?
They're Chicago-based. I'll introduce you if you'd like.
We can change the world.
Sure.
Change the world. Change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, it is the bottom of the hour, 7:34 Central Standard Time here in Chicago. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio. My brothers and sisters to the north. Hey, Chad Larson and company up there, sending you all so much love today. And my YouTube family and Facebook family, please meet everybody, all the morning stars over on YouTube, the Santita Jackson Show. Please meet them over there. And everybody like and share. Of course, it is time for Dr. Max Wolf, brilliant economist. We've got a lot going on today as we look at wage growth or the lack thereof. And, we're looking at these United Auto Workers, Dr. Wolf, who, I think this, they're saying they're looking for shorter working hours. I'm like, it's not quite the full story. They're not trying to work less for more money. Real wages have not moved in half a century. I mean, so talk to me, wage growth. What is that? Because every time I listen to the corporate news, I was in an Uber yesterday I have a regular Uber driver, thank goodness. And shout out to Aaliyah. She's fantastic. And we were listening to a financial report and we both were incredulous. And she just laughed out loud. Brilliant young woman, really, really sharp. She said, "What are they talking about?" She said, do you know how much it costs for me to get groceries, to get gas, to do this, to that? Things are not getting better for me. So talk to me, Dr. Wolf. What is this?
Yeah.
Wage growth. And then if you would, I do want you to weigh in on the UAW, the potential, this potential strike. What could happen there? It's 150,000 auto workers, but starting with wage growth.
Yeah, and it's close. I mean, they have come down to the wire and avoided the actual strikes on a number of previous occasions, but it's, we're down to the less than a day. So yeah, it's definitely going down to the wire. And again, doesn't guarantee the outcome, but the conversation back and forth between Ford and the UAW president and the autos, it's not super encouraging that they're in the most productive conversation ever right now either. So not much time left, and not the rhetoric, which again, not always a good sign, but not always, reliable, is not enormously encouraging either. So look, whether people are experiencing a good situation and aggregate data, which adds up 340 million Americans and divides by the number of people, is always two separate things, right? So the averages can be accurate without that being correct for millions and millions or tens or hundreds of millions of people, right? Because these are averages, and the averages also don't take account of distributional issues. So if some people are doing really, 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 really well and other people are doing really, really, really badly, the average won't capture how well some people are doing or how poorly others are, right? So averages have issues just by virtue of the fact that they're averages. The other thing is that the popular discussions mostly are kind of business bend, so they sort of tend to talk to business and executive type voices and speak to their concerns and speak from their perspective, which again is not universal, right? So what the top 1 or 2% of people are experiencing and their concerns, sometimes will be pretty similar for everyone else, and oftentimes will not be, right? So there's just sort of through whose eyes, which I think might be what you're pointing out from your Uber-related conversation. Honestly, I don't know exactly what financial news piece, she laughed at and you found troubling, but if it's on inflation, which is, a topic of the day, the topic du jour kind of repeatedly lately, remember too that if inflation falls, all that tells us is the rate of price increase is going down. Prices are still increasing, and however much they went up last year and the year before, they're still all the way up there, right? So I think sometimes people hear these discussions saying, hey, the inflation rate is coming down, and that's good news. That just sort of tells us how quickly your money is losing value.
Well, let me put it this way. Nicole Barrett said there are a lot of people working multiple jobs to survive. We can just be right there.
The bottom 40% of Americans, a bunch of people, right? So it's about half. It's more people than are doing well.
Yeah.
If you're just are we talking about just the total numbers here of people, or it's a lot of people.
This is just her lived experience, right. which is what this young woman was talking about yesterday, and not just Miss Aaliyah, who I was talking about. I mean, I hear it all the time, and now you're seeing it with the UAW.
Even in the labor market,
I promise you, I think these UAW workers are going to get another job. If they get a 32-hour work week, because they don't have.
Some of them probably already have another job.
Well, no,
they're trying to check in, see their kids every now and again, or whoever they married, whatever their name is, or go on vacation or take a few days off and see the parents or whatever they want to get up to. But the point is, I'm sure a lot of them have another job, and not because they're trying to save up for something special or get a big truck, but because they're trying to pay their mortgage or help their kid go to college or whatever the stuff that, look, part of it is if you go to sleep politically for 40, 50 years and start voting against your self-interest, when you wake up, which, maybe they're doing now, you wake up naked in the back of a van. That's not how that's not how this game is played, right? If you go to sleep with your life savings in your mouth and no clothes on in the corner in a rough part of town, you're not going to wake up as a prince or a princess, right? You're going to wake up in bad shape, right? And that's left a lot of people not wanting to wake up one way or another.
Yeah.
So they take their mental trips, or they drink it away, or they smoke it away, or they inject it away, or they crazy it away. And it's the popularity of being crazy right now. I'm not going to think it's a conscious decision, any of those things, but it does seem like a popular move. But yeah, look, things have gotten pretty tough for the average person, which I'm sure is not news to the average person, right? And the big picture, the way I look at it as an economist, which might be a little impersonal, is that the return, what you can hope to buy of a life, if you sell your mental and physical efforts, if you work for someone else in the United States, with lots of important exceptions, but not enough exceptions, has gotten worse and worse and worse most years for most people for most of half a century. So we might be at the beginning of the process of waking up, but we're 50 years into the process, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, a lot of folks are in bad shape. I would say, to be fair to the unions, UAW, their employees have actually done a good bit better than the average, right? So if you are a UAW employee, you're probably paid a little better. You almost certainly have better workplace protection, safety, and others. You have probably better benefits, and you have a better retirement. Not than your parents if they work there too. There you did not do as well, but compared to the average working American, working in a union still kind of generally results in better wages, better conditions, higher salaries than people who have similar gigs and don't work in the union, right? The problem with that is that less than 10% of the United States is in a union. So we hear a lot of conversations about it, but the problem is that sort of relatively better conditions, still problematic, right? Still not great, but the better, relatively better that pertains to people who work in unions doesn't address the condition of that many Americans, just because, again, less than 10% of Americans are really in the unions. And then a really high number of the people who are in unions are in the Northeast and Midwest states and work in the public sector, whether that's for the federal government, a state government institution, or a local municipal institution. A really disproportionate number of the people who still are unionized in the United States are public sector workers. So if you're not in the public sector, it's more like 1 in 15 people would be in a union or in the labor force. So union rates have come quite a ways down over the last 30, 40 years as well, just in percentage terms.
What does it mean for, are these numbers accurate, that U.S. household debt is now $17 trillion?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Obviously, informal debt arrangements are not captured. So, like if your cousin lends you money and, we don't know that stuff, right? But, yeah, formally, the numbers are good. The Federal Reserve keeps quite good numbers, and the New York Federal Reserve Bank kind of tracks household indebtedness. It's all on their website. It's actually pretty nicely presented. The research is good. We've seen a pretty good pop up in debt for a host of reasons. The big ones being that student loans have exploded because of the really chronic and increasing lack of affordability of schools, particularly college, but private schools in high school and in elementary school as well, although they don't have the same debt arrangements. So the cost of education has really shot up. The cost of medicine medical care has really, really shot up. The cost of housing has ballooned, and the cost of cars. And people in the United States kind of borrow for housing. That's their biggest borrowing. They borrow for cars. They borrow for emergencies. Emergencies in the United States disproportionately mean health, because we still have the worst public health provision in the developed world. So health. They borrow because they get divorced, and they borrow because they get unemployed. And so all those things are going to drive them into a conveyor belt where they're going to have to try to keep up with payments, and interest rates have come a bit higher. And so the unaffordability of those middle-class staples that people still need and want, that house, that car, maybe an education or some kind of job training of some kind. And because people are so hedonistic, sometimes they want to go to the doctor when they're deathly ill. So if you add those crazy self-indulgent habits to the American worker, you have this, and then some people have bad luck, like they get cancer, possibly from something added to their environment by one of their beloved corporate partners and neighbors, possibly not, possibly lifestyle or something else. And then, so they end up really kind of in debt spirals, right? So that's a contributor. And then the last thing is a funny factor that we kind of know about, confidence factor, they sometimes call it, which is if you tell everyone how well everything's going and how well everyone's doing, they'll spend more money, often to keep up with the Joneses and often to sort of feel like they are successful and look successful, appear successful, which can be useful to them in their businesses or getting jobs or sense of self or whatever you might want to call it. And so the debt load tends to trickle up. And again, all those conversations about inflation, if you're not earning that much more, and that's what the real wage data tells us over the last year, we kind of barely tread water in terms of what we earn and what we buy with it, then you're probably more likely to take on debt, right? Because the extra money is not going to be in your cash flow, so you'll dissave or do it. Then, you're not going to get a relief from your rent because that's really popped up. You're not going to get a relief if you purchase a home, especially recently with higher prices for the home and higher mortgage rates. And you're not going to get much of a break on those groceries, and you're not going to get much of a break on that gas, and you're not going to get much of a break on that car. And if you have a kid in college, God help you.
Well, I mean, God help us. I mean, because according to the New York Fed, credit applications are being rejected at a high rate. Auto loans are being rejected at a high rate. The credit card limit increases that people are asking for, they're being rejected. I mean, people, it seems like they're choking. You've got this household debt that is like unfathomable. What did you say? I mean, I heard you speak at one of at the Wall Street conference years ago. Everybody think about it. $1 trillion is 1 million, right? And everybody, I just saw people's heads shake like, whoa, wait a minute, 1 million, 17 trillion, 1 million, 17 million. That's the household debt in the United States. And people are applying for credit cards. Many of us are using credit cards to eat, Dr. Wolf. I mean, to go to the grocery store, but they're being rejected. Sure. What does that say? I mean, how are people supposed to make
millions?
Number one, what does that say to you when you see auto loans, credit card limit increases, credit card applications? They're being rejected at a record rate.
Well, two things are going on there, I think, right now, which is, one is the banks and their economists and their forecasts are that the market's going to get more turbulent, right? That some of these special programs and aid programs and help that people got to kind of get through, they're mostly either over or ending, right? And that's beginning to sort of pass into a stress on households. People have borrowed quite a bit, and wages are no longer going up. And so people are going to have a harder time to earn more money. I mean, on average, not any given individual who might be listening out there, but on average. And it looks like the road ahead is a little bit bumpier, and it costs a little bit more for them to borrow money because the Fed raised those interest rates, remember, to tame inflation. And so they're probably, all things being equal, interested in taking less risk. And when you apply saying, hey, give me some more money, I'm already in debt, you without thinking about it, what you're actually doing is asking the bank to take more risk on you. And if they're in a, hey, let's take a little less risk mode, and you're in a, hey, I'd like you to take a little more risk mode, there's more likely to get, some friction there in terms of rejected applications. The other thing that happens often is that people start to look for extra debt sometimes when their lives get turbulent. And in the age of the internet, the banks have a lot better way to track how you're doing. So they could catch, signals of early issues, being a few days late with a bill here or there, or changing your consumption pattern, things that were once relatively difficult for them to detect. In the age of doing things online and electronic data mining, which they do, which is to get all the information they can on people, they start to see distressing signals out there. They're going to pull back on how much risk they have. And that takes the form of, a no on a credit limit, or you ask for, $5,000 and they approve you for $2,000, something, so it's not always yes, no. Sometimes it's yes, but less.
Mm. So,
and I think you're going to see that. Also, the cars, they lent a lot on cars, and car value really shot up, and now those markets are softening. So how much you want to lend someone for a vehicle depends on how much you think it's worth if you have to take it back from them. And if that market softens, if it looks like you're not going to get so much if you repossess the vehicle, then you're going to be less interested in making a substantial loan for the vehicle because you're more worried about what happens if they can't make the payment.
Well, what is some are writing or speculating that a credit crunch could be unfolding. What is a credit crunch, and do you think that could be happening?
Yeah, I mean, there's some evidence it is happening, particularly with the smaller regional banks. So when the Federal Reserve raises interest rates a lot in a fairly short period of time, which has happened, and if it does that, having not done that for 20 years or so it's been a while, right? Think of it this way: the management generation in these banks have never seen this before, right? So it's an unfamiliar management challenge for some of them, and it's a pretty big increase pretty quickly. It puts stresses on their books because they mostly hold government debt, right? These banks. And if that loses value because interest rates are going up, it puts pressure on them. You saw that a bit with Signature Bank, which went under out of New York City here. You saw that with Silicon Valley Bank in large part from mismanagement there, which is from the other coast, from the Bay Area. You saw that with a number of institutions there, right? And so that is an issue. The regional banks have that issue. They may have mismanaged their holdings of U.S. Treasuries when the interest rates went up and those Treasuries lost value. And not to be too professorial here, but when interest rates go up, bond prices go down because the bond says, "Hey, I'm $1 million to buy, and I pay you, $100,000 a year." That's an interest rate of 10%, right? If the Federal Reserve pushes the interest rate up to 12%, that bond isn't very appealing. So the price has to go down until it yields 12% like everything else. Make sense? So when the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates, and that's the stated policy, which it has been, and if they do that fairly aggressively, having not done it for a while, which is the story of the last year or so, then they're actually lowering the value of those bonds on those banks' books. And as they do that, those banks are supposed to decrease the amount of loans they have out there. And one way they do that is saying no. The other way they do that is imploding and getting rescued by the government. So saying no to the loans is the better course. But yeah, and then the last piece is when financial institutions are competing to make loans, they're more generous. When they're trying to reduce the amount of loans they have because things aren't looking so good, they're not generous. Well, again, it's not about the individual. People shouldn't take it personally, right? It's about them. But yeah, it's just a policy decision.
Well, collectively, something's happening. I mean, when Walmart is saying that, hey, we might have to raise prices, but more and more, when you go to Walmart, Walgreens, and all these stores, they're locking product away. You have to get a sales associate to come to get your aspirin, to get you, wipes, because now theft is rising in the retail sector. Now, I'm not judging anyone, because when you see Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and all these people who became billionaires or multiplied their already billion-dollar fortunes during the pandemic, the rich got richer, the poor got poorer. I mean, and people are desperate. People are desperate. They can't get a credit card. There is a credit crunch. What are people to do? I mean, because now large retailers, no wonder they want you to shop online, because they're seeing a lot of theft. Because I think people are like at a breaking
there's two
point,
levels of theft. Yeah, well, the retailers, the brick and mortar retailers, right, as opposed to just the pure online or principally online, they've been hit pretty hard. So a lot of security, a lot of closures, a lot of employee turnover, right, and a lot of theft, right? And one thing to remember, the retail industry always has a euphemism for this. They call it shrinkage. They don't like to talk about theft because they don't want to associate their store with people who steal. Usually it's not great branding, so they usually have their own phrase for it. They call it shrinkage. And the other thing is, look, they haven't, as a group, there are exceptions, but as a group, retail employment does not have a spectacular reputation for how well it pays people, how well it promotes people, and the benefits it offers. Again, notable exceptions, right? There are notable exceptions where that's not the case. So, the Starbucks of the world, Costco's of the world, there are good retail employers, and they deserve, to be mentioned, at least for the things they do that are good. Starbucks a little bit more mixed with their recent union stuff, but generally it's been a pretty good employer, right? Paying above average, good sort of education benefit if you qualify for it, relatively good healthcare benefits for that kind of work if you qualify for them. So not everyone, I don't want to paint with too broad a brush, but they've had it really hard. A lot of employee turnover, a lot of employee incidents, a lot of theft, spiking rents. Lots of people don't want to leave their house or got used to buying things online and didn't come back as permanently or as much as people thought when the worst of COVID appeared, because it's less clear now, but appeared to be over. So that all hit them pretty hard. And then the big shrinkage that no one ever mentions is your employees. So more than half of everything stolen from your store, in most cases in the U.S., is by your employees. And that doesn't you can't see an exciting video of a bunch of people with a hooded sweatshirt, because the employees know where the cameras are, and they don't run in from the outside 20 at a time, usually at lunch. I mean, maybe they do, but it's pretty rare. They usually have a slightly more elegant method. But yeah, I mean, so a lot of angry people in temporary work who aren't going to be there very long, who aren't getting paid enough to live, that also can create a situation where the videos we all see, which are very disturbing, I mean, of people running into a store and smashing a jewelry case with a hammer and terrorizing the poor folks working there or shopping there, like that's for real. But there's also just a lot of people who know where the cameras are and work there, and stuff they liberate items from stores.
Max, they're teaching Harvard students how to apply for welfare, SNAP and WIC benefits. They've got the largest endowment of any college in the world. This is unsustainable and crazy.
Is this the graduate students? Well, the graduate students who teach your kids in these $65,000 a year schools, they do qualify for. I mean, having been one of them, we would have qualified for welfare. So if you work pretty hard and you make about $19,000 a year, I'm living in Boston. I'm not saying that they're the most
No, I'm just saying there's
most
something
needy, but yeah.
No, they are needy, and there's something off about that. I mean, it's something off in the richest country on earth when basic folks aren't making it. People are broke. People are struggling. I've got the last minute. It belongs to you.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about all this is we need to look at the wages. We tend to look at prices, and prices matter, but they're half the equation. You need to learn to sort of look at the wages as well as learn to look at the prices. And we've mostly spent time on the prices. And that's part of it because we've been taught to think of the world as consumers, right? But most people, their life, their economic livelihood is actually from selling their ability to do things for someone else or starting their own small business. But that's kind of less common and more hyped than probably statistics bear out in the U.S. So if that's true, you have to think about the plight of working people, not just the plight of consumers. And the truth is, if you think that way, you will see the political choice landscape very differently, which is why we don't get encouraged to think that way. But I think what we've missed is some sense of identity as people who work for a living. And if that comes back, it will help both parties make decisions that are a little more beholden to the working people of this country. And maybe we get off just talking about the social issues and the hot button wedge issues and, who gets to use what bathroom and which preteen sexual assault victim we can force to have a baby.
We got a lot of work to do, everybody. Sending you so much love, Dr. Max Wolf. Brilliant, everybody. You can reach him on social media, Max F. Wolf. That's with 2 F's. Max F. WOLFF. And yes, he is Dr. Wolf's son. The brilliance has been passed down. We're getting that question here on the chat line. Sending you so much love today, everybody. I'm running out of here today. Sending much love to Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago. They'll be honoring Reverend Jesse Jackson at City Hall today, so I got to run out of here. Love you, everybody. God bless you. Love you, Dr. Wolf. Thank you, Henry, for a great show. Love you too. Love everybody. God bless you. See you tomorrow morning on the Santita Jackson Show.
Congrats, Reverend, for the honor.
Isn't that kind?